What's going on, my fellow rock and rollers? Don't forget to hit the bell notification icon to be notified every time I put out a new video on my channel. And this one is a fan request. In the mid-60s, there was a chance encounter between Andy Warhol's muse, Edie Sedgwick, and musician Bob Dylan that was rumored to have led to a relationship. Now let me start today's story off by saying this is highly disputed. In a 2017 Vintage News Online article, it stated that Dylan threatened to sue when he was mentioned in the fictionalized book about Edie's life called Factory Girl. Edie was a socialite with a tragic past who was rising to fame, but also struggling with addiction and mental health issues. She was voted Vanity Fair's Girl of the Year in 1965. Many members of her elite lineage struggle with depression. Her father was a sculptor with bipolar disorder who was abusive towards his 7 children. 2 of her brothers also died young, which left her emotionally scarred. Warhol and Sedgwick would meet in 1965 at a party for playwright Tennessee Williams. She would go on to star in 10 of Warhol's art films and became well known in pop culture for her signature look of dark rimmed eyes, long legs and tights, fur coats, and white blonde hair. For a short time, she became his muse. When they met, Warhol had already produced his most famous artworks, including the Marilyn Monroe and Campbell's Soup Can silk screen prints. Things started to fall apart less than a year later when Sedgwick met Bob Dylan. In 2018's AllThat'sInteresting.com article, Sedgwick also felt that Warhol's films made her look like a fool. The relationship between Sedgwick and Dylan was never officially confirmed in the press. Some speculate that there are Dylan lyrics inspired by Sedgwick, like a few of the verses in Like a Rolling Stone. Some also think tracks from the '66 album Blonde on Blonde, tracks like Just Like a Woman, Leopard Skin Pillbox Hat, and Fourth Time Around are also inspired by Sedgwick. A source of tension between the rumored couple was Dylan's distaste for Warhol's art. He also thought Warhol was an opportunist who would get rid of Sedgwick once he stopped being inspired by her. And Dylan and Warhol would actually meet at his art studio called The Factory at East 47th Street in Manhattan on January 23, 1965. While there, he recorded a famous screen test and was given a Warhol painting of Elvis that he later traded for a sofa. As the rumor goes, it was after that visit that Dylan stopped seeing Sedgwick. Her older brother Jonathan claimed that Sedgwick was actually pregnant by Dylan, but she did not carry through with her pregnancy. It was around this time that Warhol and Sedgwick had a falling out, and in the last Warhol film featuring Sedgwick, he told Vanity Fair, "I want something where Edie commits suicide at the end." Dylan would go on to marry model Sarah Lowndes and have 4 children together. Sedgwick would fall into a deep depression, then ended up in a short relationship with one of Dylan's friends, folk musician Bobby Newworth. Things ended when he got tired of her drug use, and Sedgwick would struggle with drugs and go in and out of mental institution in the years that followed. She once even fell asleep stoned while smoking a cigarette and lit her apartment on fire. After parting ways with Warhol, the height of her career was landing on the cover of Vogue in 1966, but her heavy drug use stopped her from branching off into modeling, as this wasn't something that the Vogue brand wanted to be associated with. She would overdose on drugs on November 16, 1971. The album Blonde on Blonde, like Dylan, is shrouded in some mystery. A 2016 Vanity Fair online article puts it best, saying, "It's still hard to figure out exactly what was eating Bob Dylan when he recorded Blonde on Blonde, but it's hard not to see why it will still be remembered as one of the greatest rock and roll albums of all time." Dylan had a lot going on in his personal life that all could have influenced the tracks on Blonde. He was recently married, he had just become a first-time father, and his transformational relationship with folk singer Joan Baez would propel him from folk singer to cultural icon in only a few years. Let me know, guys, do you think Blonde on Blonde's tracks were inspired by Sedgwick? Let me know in the comments section. And what other groupies do you know that inspired famous rock songs? Let me know in the comments section below.